شكوت إلى وكيعي سوء حفظي وأرشدني عن ترك المعاصي.
And so now what I want to talk about today is how to ward off distractions, how to fight off distractions and things that will adversely affect your Khushoo. One of the first things that you should do before praying that will help to ward off or protect you from distractions is remove anything that will distract you. We have the hadith whereas once Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, had a decorated colorful curtain that she used to cover the side of her house. The Prophet ﷺ said to her, take it away from me because its decorations keep distracting me when I pray. Now Aisha had this cloth that she used to cover a small alcove used for sleeping. Even though there was no pictures of people or animals on it, but the simple fact that it was decorated so brightly distracted the Prophet. So this is why another way that we can help to ward ourselves or protect ourselves from distractions during prayer is by taking away those things which may appeal to the eye. We also have another hadith whereas once the Prophet ﷺ entered the Kaaba to pray in it, and he saw two ram's horns. When he had prayed, he told Uthman, I forgot to tell you to recover the horns because there should not be anything in the house to distract the worshiper. So even something as simple as having two horns sticking out of the wall, this may be distracting for someone. Having a candle sticking out. And we come across a lot of people who ask the question, for example, about whether or not we can pray in front of a mirror. There's nothing that prohibits us from praying in front of a mirror. But one of the reasons why it's discouraged is because your reflection may distract you. You may become distracted from that reflection. Okay? So again, you want to avoid praying in places where where there's a lot of distractions, or if you have distractions in your prayer room, take them down. Also, avoid praying in places where there's a lot of noise or a lot of people talking or where there are visual distractions. Also, you should avoid praying in places that are very hot or very cold because the weather also distracts us from praying. You could be standing there freezing and thinking about how you can't wait to get warm, okay? Or how you could be hot, thinking about how you can't wait to get cooled off, etc. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ used to delay praying Zuhr in summer, because of the heat would be so hot that it would be distracting. In fact, praying when it is intensely hot prevents a person from having the proper Khushoo and presence of mind, and he does his worship reluctantly. Another thing to do to help fight off distractions when praying is to not pray when there is food prepared. In other words, if the dinner is ready, eat before you pray. The Prophet ﷺ said, do not pray when there is food ready. If food has been prepared and served, a person should eat first because he will not be able to concentrate properly. You'll be standing there in that prayer talking about how you can't wait to eat that chicken. And also, you should not rush to finish eating either. The Prophet ﷺ said, if the dinner is served and the time for prayer comes, eat dinner before praying. Do not rush to finish your meal. Okay? Also, another way to avoid distractions during prayer is to not pray if you are in need of answering the call of nature. Because again, this too affects your concentration. It affects your focus. You'll be standing there in the salat line thinking about how you have to hold it and how you have to hurry up to get to the bathroom. This will distract you from your prayer. Okay, so if you have to use the bathroom, go use the bathroom first and then pray afterwards. The Prophet ﷺ said, if any one of you needs to go to the toilet and the prayer has begun, he should go to the toilet first. Also, the Prophet ﷺ said, there is no prayer when there is food prepared, or if one is suppressing the urge to expel his waste. Another way to avoid distractions during prayer is to not pray if you feel sleepy. To not pray if you feel sleepy. The Prophet ﷺ said, if any one of you feels sleepy when he is praying, he should sleep until he is rested enough to know what he is saying. He should take a nap until he no longer feels drowsy. Because again, this will also distract your prayer. You won't be aware of what you're saying. You're supposed to ponder the words of the Fatiha. Ponder your talk between you and Allah. Another thing to do to protect against distractions during prayer is to not pray behind a person who is talking or sleeping. The Prophet ﷺ said, do not pray behind a person who is sleeping or who is talking, because one who is talking will distract the worshiper with his talk, and the person who is sleeping may expose something that will distract the worshiper. So as we can see, guys, these are simple things that we don't think of. But by thinking of these things, it may help to safeguard our prayer. Another thing to do to keep you from being distracted during your prayer is to not occupy yourself with smoothing the ground in front of you. Now, we pray on the ground. Some people are so concerned, with rocks or dirt on the ground. The Prophet ﷺ said, if you have to smooth the ground when you prostrate, do it only one time and that's it. That means that after the first rakat, when you go down to sujood, if you want to move something off the ground, go ahead. Just that one time. And that's it. The Prophet ﷺ said, do not wipe the ground when you are praying. If you do have to do it only once. And again, the reason for this is because it breaks your concentration. And this also applies to wiping your face, wiping your nose, and all this stuff when you're praying. We got a lot of people who think they're too good to put their head down on the ground to pray. Well, the Prophet ﷺ used to prostrate in mud and water, which would leave traces on his forehead. But he did not bother to wipe it off every time he raised his head from sujood. It would remain there because he was so deeply absorbed in his prayer, and his concentration was so strong that he didn't even recognize that he had mud on him. The Prophet ﷺ said prayer is an occupation by itself. Okay, so don't go around wiping your foreheads and all this stuff like you see so many Muslims doing when you're making salat, because again, this distracts you. Another thing to do that can help you to avoid distractions during prayer is to not disturb others with your recitation. The Prophet ﷺ said, all of you are speaking to your Lord, so do not disturb one another, and do not raise your voices above one another when reciting in prayer. In other words, when you recite the Fatiha and when you're praying, make sure that you're not all showing off all loud and stuff. You want the people to see how good you can recite. You should recite in a voice and